Hello and welcome. My name is Frank Sotzik, an author at my website www.wordsbyfrank.com. This is an introduction to a program that I have called Drugs Are Fun? It is the beginning of a series of programs that I wish to offer at my website. So if you like this video, please visit my website and see what I have to offer there, and my social media on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I am an author with 2 books, the first being free and available for download at my website, Words of Experience, and the second one being a fiction book for sale at my website. Now, this whole saga started with my first book, Words of Experience. I am a gay man. I'm currently 47 years old. I have a PhD in immunology and have had some experience of biomedical research over the years. I believe that homophobia helped destroy my medical research career, and my father, who died 2 years ago, was very old at the time that I resigned from a university lecturing position. I ended up a taxi driver on night shifts in Perth, Australia, and while I was doing this job, I spoke to a lot of young people whom I had taken to and from nightclubs, and found that things for young gay people were very similar to those I had experienced myself 20 to 25 years before. So I decided to write a free book to help young gay people and lesbian people and transgender people and bisexual people and so on. And I made it available at my website, which at the time was a different one, www.wordsofexperience.com.au. I felt that this book addressed a need in a way that I hadn't seen it addressed before. So I felt that it was right to make it available for free. It actually dealt with a lot of issues of young people that were not just issues for gay people. And some of those issues are important for people of all ages. But the fact is, when one gets older, one has the experiences to handle a lot of the things that are harder to handle when you get them the first time around, which is why I felt that the first book, Words of Experience, was useful for young people. I did have a section on recreational drug use and discussed a number of factors that were involved in using drugs, including medical uses and non-medical uses. And I felt that there was scope to increase this further to help people, especially young people, which is why I'm offering this program called Drugs Are Fun? I think that if you participate in this program, you may find it easier to give up habits that you are unhappy with, and you might find it's possible to look at life in a whole new, fulfilling way, and doing things that you might not have thought of before, or being able to do things that you would have wanted to do before, but somehow felt you couldn't or that you shouldn't. So let's move on. At my website, I have a questionnaire for people for the Drugs Are Fun program to see whether or not a person is having problems with drug use. For many people, drug use is not a problem, especially if one lives in a country where the laws are very lenient and where one is not executed for possession or use of drugs. At any rate, my position here is not to moralize, preach, or say what people should do. In fact, I really want to learn more about what people do, and I do that best by observing without judgment. I personally have very little experience with recreational use, and my lifestyle does not really involve it. However, that doesn't stop me using my knowledge of biochemistry, neuroscience, and other biomedical sciences, and my experiences of people, including those in the taxi who did use various types of drugs, to help. So why do some people use drugs and find there is no problem and feel very happy about it, and other people go off the rails and suffer terribly and maybe become homeless or sick or die prematurely? This is a very difficult question to answer, and I attempted to do it in words of experience in a very limited way. Genetics is very important. There are many genes for processing different types of drugs. Drugs in the body are taken in and broken down just like toxins. And there are various factors other than drugs themselves that maintain drug habits. So I think for a person who is unhappy with drug use and wishes to reduce or discontinue it, there are three main areas that need to be considered. And I have made this simple diagram with lifestyle factors, mental factors, and drug-related ones. Lifestyle factors relate to the types of activities one chooses to do in life, the friends one likes to have around one, and the choices one makes. So, for example, I have a lifestyle in which health and fitness are very important. I like to have a few close friends rather than many friends about me, although I'm very sociable and I still like to get to know new people and like to learn about others. I always find that I'm growing, and my lifestyle involves learning about things, reading, asking questions, and finding out more. Mental aspects of life are those that go inside the head and the mind. They can be very subtle. Things can happen that are very important and move one's life in different directions, yet one can be hardly aware of them. The mental aspects are very important in creating habits because the biggest factor motivating people is actually a habit, and a lot of that is established because of one's mental culture. Drug-related issues are important. Addiction, for example. Addiction is not a given thing. Different drugs have the capacity to addict different individuals in different ways, depending on one's genetics. In words of experience, I refer to this as genetic lottery, because one can, just like one can draw the winning ticket in a lottery and be very happy, one can also draw something that's won a lot of suffering for many years. It's not my place to moralize, though, and in fact, I believe that the medical potential of a whole range of drugs is greatly underused. I don't just mean medical marijuana. I mean all sorts of drugs, basically any type of substance that has no food value but affects the mind and body. Food itself acts as a drug and is dose dependent. If you're unsure of that, Just try different types of herbal teas and see how you feel. Now, I'm only discussing things in these 3 areas, but to keep things simple and to make it easier to have my program. It is actually possible to look at a whole lot of areas of your life, and I'm sure that will be some people that say, well, Frank, what about this? Have you forgotten this? And have you forgotten that? And while I admit that this model isn't perfect, I think it allows one to get a grip on various things that create habits in life, including especially drug habits here, and to be able to deal with them to live a happy and healthy life. Well, let's start with the first issues, how to get moving. Gaining momentum to make change that keeps one happy longer and more often and helps one be creative and productive and have all the things that one wants in life starts with believing in oneself and empowering oneself. And empowerment feels terrific, just like the man in this picture. It's something to jump up and down with and celebrate. So how does one empower oneself if one has low self-esteem, or you don't feel good about yourself, or other people keep putting you down? Well, please remember that you are in charge of your beliefs. You are the person who decides what you put into your head and how you respond. So if you have a positive belief in yourself and believe that deep down you are a wonderful person, no matter what you've done, no matter what you think you're like, that you can be creative, that you can do good things, that you can be confident, then even if it doesn't happen overnight, little by little, you can empower yourself to have a wonderful life. This is based on your beliefs, the things that you choose to value and the things that you choose to hold true. And by taking ownership of this and deciding this is what I want in my life, I want to be confident, I want to be positive, I want to have friends who support me and who make life wonderful, who I can share things with, all these things. If you want these things in life, it starts with you and your beliefs. Just empower yourself. To do this, you have to be very determined. It's quite difficult to explain determination if one feels beaten down and that life is hard and depressing. I've had many times in my life where I've been very unhappy. Although fortunately I didn't have any serious mental trouble in life, I was withdrawn at one stage in high school, had no friends, and felt really terrible. And I remember what that was like. And I think it's possible to turn things like that around, even if they're way more serious, and through determination, make life really good. Another thing that helps is to change things slowly and deliberately and keep doing it. And every step of the way, reward yourself. Say good things to yourself. Rather than blaming yourself and say bad things about yourself, replace those negative thoughts and attitudes with good ones. So, for example, if you do something that you consider a major step in your life, get yourself something that you really enjoy eating, like a pastry, a piece of cake, or something that makes you happy. In this case, somebody might say, well, I'm advocating unhealthy things. No, I'm not. I'm just saying be patient with yourself, be good to yourself, and reward yourself for improving things in your life at every step of the way. And that way you'll be more confident, you'll be happier, and your life will be moving forward. So, in short, empower yourself and make the moves that bring your life into alignment with your beliefs. It takes time and it takes patience, but just like the man in this picture, it's definitely worth it. Drug rehabilitation in many circles is a very complex area with many different health professionals. This also makes it potentially expensive, if not for the individual, for other people or groups, and resource intensive as well. It may be necessary for it to be so, but in some cases it's not. And in many cases, people can simply have a go on their own, provided the good support network is there. The questionnaire that I offer off my website for people to see if they have drug problems has 3 different areas: green, amber, and red, just like traffic lights. So the program that I'm offering, I offer to people in the green and amber areas, the low risk and moderate risk people. If you do this questionnaire, or if you go anywhere else and find that you are in a very high risk category for self-harm or drug problems with the law, with money, with other people, family, friends, etc., then I strongly recommend you not to do the program with me, but rather to seek specialized professional help, people who are trained specifically to assist you with your problems, either working by themselves or with a team. If, on the other hand, your problem isn't so serious, but just unpleasant, inconvenient, or you are just interested in this program, by all means, you're welcome to do it. But it is wise to have professional support available and to seek information on this support in various ways. So this sort of support includes doctors, medical doctors, people who are trained to look after physical health, also people in the mental health area. So the counseling profession, so people who are skilled in medicine and psychology, psychiatrists, or people who have training in psychology alone. However, it's not necessarily a formula that one can offer as to which professionals should be there on standby if one is recovering from a drug problem or wishing to change one's life, where one is in control of the drugs rather than the drugs in control of one's life. Then one needs these health professionals. And they're always different. It depends on one's needs. It's good to know a good GP at the very least. And it's good to be familiar with the services that are available at one's local public hospital at the very least. The advantages of these things are anonymity too. People don't always want to broadcast to the world that they're recovering from a drug problem or that they want to have a life where drugs don't have a hold on them. Other people may not even know that, family and friends, and there's no need to alarm others about one's own problems. At any rate, there is very specialized help available. There are people who specialize in drug rehabilitation of various types, and people vary in the extent to which they may need counseling for mental health issues or for problems that occurred in the past. Violent domestic abuse, for example, or psychological torment in bad relationships, or various unpleasant experiences with drugs. Whatever the problem is, whatever the situation is, one simply needs to sit down with a piece of paper and figure out which areas does one need help for, and of those areas, in those areas, who can offer good services that one can afford. So with a team on standby, even if one never actually needs the help, one can then proceed to try to get away from the grip of various types of drugs that make one's life unhappy. A lot of the stigma associated with mental illness comes from the past. When I use the word mental illness, even that word itself has stigma associated with it. I remember having depression and anxiety as a young person. I remember how difficult it felt just to walk up to somebody and talk to them. And I was seeing a psychiatrist when I was at high school to get over this problem, and I was prescribed a small amount of medication against anxiety, and I remember the enormous difference after using the medication and how much easier it was to approach people and talk to them. And then as I became more sociable and less withdrawn, my dependence on, or I've never depended on the medication, but I reduced the dose and then eventually stopped using it. That was a good use for the medication for me. I didn't have a problem with it as other people have had. So it's unfair to say mental illness when there is a stigma attached to it. It's unfair to label people when this is done in order to judge or discriminate. Labels have a use in research so that treatments and methods of diagnosis can improve, and they have a use in treatment so that one knows what sort of medications or procedures can be used to make a person feel better. I like to think of mental health conditions, which are subject to change, and they are in many areas. They can overlap, and it can be very difficult to figure out what is wrong in someone's life whose mental health is not good. And this is an expert job, and perhaps it can be said to be more of an art than a science, but that doesn't mean the science is useless. It means that for professional science is a starting point to understand someone as a person and to use all the resources available to make the person feel better and normal. The stigma that's associated with mental illness from the time of psychoanalysis in Vienna, where Sigmund Freud worked with his mostly female patients, as in this little cartoon, is a thing of the past. There is no need for stigma anymore, but mind work and mental health counseling are very important areas. And when recovering from an addiction or when addressing issues related to drug use, drug problems, it's important not just to look at the addiction or the drug problem itself, but what is in the mind. In my first free book, Words of Experience, I mention the self-medication hypothesis. This is a theory that people have proposed, suggesting that one doesn't just go to a doctor and get treatment for things, that one may medicate oneself. So if one feels better using a certain substance, a drug, then one may use that more often, and that can lead to addiction. This can happen in various subtle ways. So someone might find, for example, that marijuana is relaxing and helps with anxiety problems. It might happen with amphetamine use. Amphetamines are used to treat ADHD. The treatment can involve small doses of amphetamines, and these can be a problem later in life if the diagnosis wasn't appropriate or if the drugs are not used in the way they were prescribed. So somebody who does not receive a diagnosis of ADHD might decide to take amphetamines because they feel better and in the end they may have a drug problem. So mental health is important when self-medication is considered, because if one can adequately treat a mental health condition, then there is no need for the particular drug that a person is self-medicating with. Of course, a lot of people are going to say this is nonsense, they only use drugs for this, that, this other reason, maybe just because it's a lifestyle choice, they find it fun, they find it enjoyable, their friends do it, various reasons. But for those people who are not unhappy with it, for who enjoy using drugs, I have nothing to offer. It is for the people who wish to have help to reduce the drugs or to stop them. One also has to consider whether one is really at risk or not. Addiction is something that is not automatic for everybody. So, for example, during the time I was a young adult, from the age of 18 into my early 20s, it was socially unacceptable not to drink when one went to a party. So although I didn't care very much for alcohol and mostly was driving, I didn't want to drink very much or at all. However, I would always have a can of beer in my hand or a glass of wine that I might sip slowly throughout the night. And as a result, I didn't get drunk or affected by alcohol, and it wouldn't have been acceptable for me to say that I don't drink anything at all. But the times have changed, and this isn't the case anymore. When I spoke to people about this, some said, well, how could you do that? And I said, what? And they said, well, you're only having one drink and just stopping at that. And I said, yes, well, what's wrong with that? And they said they can't stop at one drink. Once they have one, then they have more and more and more. And this is the sort of thing that can lead to addiction, but not everybody does it. So if one wants to stop drinking or to stop a drug habit, one thing to think about is whether one is prone to addiction. So if one has just that one drink or uses drugs on just one occasion, does it just stop there or does it continue? And the answer is one can't stop. And then the only solution is to discontinue using the drugs completely, because otherwise it leads to an addiction. But not everybody's like that, and I don't want to say that I have all those answers about it. I just say that you have to consider at all times, you have to consider yourself, what your needs are, and you, your personality, your makeup, everything. There are the other important factors to consider when reducing reliance on drugs, if one wishes to do that. In many cases, one will feel that one has to make the journey alone. A person may be homeless, friends and family may have disowned someone, so it can be a very serious issue to give up dependence on drugs and not feel that there is any social or emotional support. And while one might feel very independent and say, well, I can do it alone, and that while that might well be true, it can be so much nicer to have friends and family who are really there for you. And in fact, quite often they really want to be. They really try. My life tends to be very strongly based around health and fitness, but I think that all the choices that I make at the moment make my life happy and sustainable. And this is what healthy habits are for. They help one have a more fulfilling life and to have that life for longer. And those benefits spread, because when other people can see all the wonderful things that healthy habits do in one's life, then they want more of the same. This is achieved through discipline, but discipline shouldn't become oppressive and turn one's lifestyle into something like a duty. Discipline is a good servant and a cruel master. In this case, I don't mean discipline like bondage and discipline and whips and chains and all this sort of thing. I mean discipline in terms of taking ownership of one's life, in terms of deciding that one is responsible for one's own actions and little by little, slowly controlling the things in life that one wants to either have more of or reduce reliance of for one's greater happiness and benefit. So discipline is a big part of a healthy lifestyle, but it's got to be balanced with the same discipline. And rather than say, I will change things, bam, like turning on a light, it's easier to deal with things slowly and look at every small thing with great care. Every little thing that's in one's life, turn it over and say, do I really want this in my life or do I not? Does this make me happy? Does this make my life better? Is this better for the people that I care about? And while that might sound naive, that if this process is done slowly and with determination, it's very powerful. And discipline, for this positive aspect of discipline, is within the reach of everybody. And it does make life better. The foundations should be dealt with first. So these are the major areas in life that contribute to one's welfare and the welfare of others. So what do I actually mean about major areas in dealing with foundations? Well, I'll refer to a diagram here that comes from my first book, Word Experience. And one can laugh about the simplicity of this diagram and how it can be naive that by looking at these areas one can achieve great and wonderful things in one's life. But I've attempted to reduce a lot of the things that make life healthy and happy into a very simple model, this little triangle. And in the book, in chapter 8, Looking Good on a Low Budget, I have introduced this as a philosophy. So at the top, one has a positive mental attitude, understanding that life has a purpose and that it's meaningful. And even if one can't see it, it means having the faith to believe these things and take steps to strengthen those beliefs in one's life. It also means having a healthy diet, give health and energy. One can not only feel better and function better, but I believe one can look more beautiful. Perhaps I'm not the best advertisement for that, but that's what I believe. So the other thing that matters is regular exercise. Exercise that's done in a huge dose once with a big long break afterwards is not what I mean here. I mean exercise that one enjoys sufficiently to keep doing is regular exercise. And regular exercise keeps the body functioning efficiently. And together these things, one's mental attitude, one's diet when it's healthy, and exercise that's done at regular intervals all contribute together to make one healthy, keep one healthy, and to optimize one's beauty. At least, well, maybe not for me, but for everybody. So let's look at these things in turn in a bit more depth and how they apply to drug-related issues. Well, meaning and purpose is an area that I focused on in that model as a triangle, but there are many areas of mental culture that are positive and that merit attention. And by giving these areas the attention they deserve, one feels a lot better in life. One has emotional well-being. Attitude means bringing one's being into alignment with what one intends to do. It means empowering oneself to feel good about oneself, to believe in oneself, have good self-esteem, and be motivated, to be determined to do things that are good. As one undertakes this journey and as one gradually succeeds, it is signified by an increasing amount of joy and peace in one's life. There is less stress, and there is also less strain on friendships and relationships. The possibility of genuine relationships opens up, and while there is a tremendous amount of distress if there is a big problem in life, there is a drug problem and other problems, these can be tackled slowly. And even when one's circumstances outside oneself cannot be changed, one can still change one's reaction to it, one's attitude to it. And those things make one cope with life and feel better about oneself. So they're very important. And that's why I did it at the top of the triangle. I also believe that one has the power to attract things into one's life that one wants. And I think that one should think about these things. I think that one should think about what it is that one is attracting into one's life, that what habits one has, what beliefs one has, what values one has. One can choose one's beliefs. Nobody is an expert on the subject of belief. There are many religions in the world. There are many philosophical systems. Some of them require a lot of mental agility to follow, others don't. But it actually doesn't matter. You, as an individual, can empower yourself to think, feel, and believe as you feel you should. In my life, spirituality is very important. So I believe in God, but I'm not a religious man. I like Jesus Christ. I like what he did. For me, Jesus Christ is definitely the model of a man, how a man should be, like a role model. And Jesus' life in the Gospels is very important to me. However, I don't want to let that give the impression that I'm religious, because I believe that God is beyond religion. I think that one must have a relation. If one wants spiritual belief, and the spiritual belief involves God, then a friendship and a relationship with God are more important than a system of rules or a set of beliefs that can be written down. I believe that the true spirituality is in the heart. While I was a taxi driver on night shifts and discussing my first book and what should go in it with passengers who showed interest, I discovered that religion and being gay was a major issue for people. A lot of people felt that they wanted to have a religion and felt that they couldn't because they were gay or lesbian or bisexual, etc. In all cases, when I mean gay, I really mean the whole spectrum of sexuality associated with same-sex attraction. Jesus never condemned homosexuality anywhere in his Gospels. He only taught love, and he led by example. So I believe there is really no reason, at least the Christian religion that I have the greatest knowledge of, to be upset about religion and being gay. I think that it is something that can be self-empowering if one chooses to make it so. God is a God of love, and that is the case in any religion, in all religions that I know of. So if someone is like me and gay, then religion is not a barrier. It is not a barrier either for people of all sorts of other persuasions and likes and beliefs. And spirituality is something very much tied in with a sense of purpose and meaning in life. But to have meaning and purpose in life, one does not need spirituality or religion. But I feel that meaning and purpose are very important, and a positive attitude are very important. And these things, when one has them, makes it much easier to give up the hold of a drug habit and to have more control over life and to have more satisfaction in life. I'm a vegetarian, and while I talk about a healthy diet, I don't feel that people necessarily need to become vegetarian. In fact, some people have said, well, why don't you become vegan? And under circumstances I may. My choice not to go further was simply that we live in a society that's not very easy for vegans to go about in. If one eats out, it's very difficult to get vegan choices, although it's easier to get vegetarian choices. Every time one restricts one's diet, one has to be more careful to have adequate nutrition, and I've always had a very active lifestyle. However, I do believe that vegans can be healthy too, and that is something that I may make a move in the future to pursue is veganism, but at least not at the moment. And whoever is watching this video and interested in my program Drugs Are Fun doesn't have to be vegan or vegetarian. So vegans obviously being people who have no animal products, which includes honey and dairy products. The body needs fuel. It breaks down everything edible that has the value to provide energy and to build up the body structure into smaller and smaller molecules. And the body assembles what it needs from these smaller molecules. So by choosing things that allow the body to gain energy more easily and not to store excessive amounts of energy as fat in an unwanted way, and to take things in that allow the body to repair itself and grow and keep its structure healthy, one has a healthy life. It's important to treat the body as one would a car. If one has an automobile, one will service it regularly, take it to people that look after it, care for it itself, put in the appropriate fuel, and so on, check it regularly. And the body needs just as much attention, even more. So the difficulty is a lot of people recognize that they want to eat well, but it's hard to find the discipline. It's hard to resist all the sweet and sugary things and so on. But I believe it's possible to reduce reliance on these things and to have more of a healthy diet. I never intended in my book to introduce the food pyramid and discuss it at length. I believe that diets are personal choices. What one chooses to eat is a very much personal choice. There are many simple recipes I could offer if people are interested. It's possible to have a very delicious pasta sauce, just for example, with olive oil, basil, tomatoes, garlic, salt, and pepper. And that can make a huge difference to a very plain dish of boiled pasta, and it's very easy and simple to do. One should consider the healthy things in a diet and adjust what one takes in for maximum benefit to the body. And this need not be a chore. I enjoy cooking. I think it's fun. I like the feeling that what I'm doing is making my body healthy and giving me the energy to live life the way I want it to. One can cook in company too, which makes it more enjoyable. And there are strategies for doing it in such a way that it's not a terrible chore, or that one doesn't run out of time for other things that one wants to do or has to do. So, for example, one can cook food in batches and freeze it down and thaw food if one has days where work is very busy or when one just can't cook. If vegetarian food actually keeps better than food with meat, fish, seafood, poultry, etc. So it's possible to keep vegetarian food in the fridge all week, which one can't do with meat, fish, seafood, and poultry, etc. So that, for me, is an advantage of a vegetarian diet, that it means one can cook and eat more efficiently. And there is also the final area of the triangle, which is exercise. In my case, exercise is a big part of my life. I work out at a gym 3 times a week. I could do less, but 3 times a week for me is a healthy minimum. I also do Tai Chi and Chinese exercises, Tai Chi and Qi Kung in the mornings. I learned these at a time when I was living in Taiwan, and after finding the enormous health benefits, have continued it ever since. And whatever exercise one does, it has to be fun. So, for example, some people might prefer yoga to Tai Chi. I learned yoga when I was at work previously, and I used yoga postures as stretching exercises at the gym so that I don't forget how to do them. But I personally spend more time doing Tai Chi and Chinese Qigong exercises, and that suits me, whereas somebody else might prefer yoga. Whatever the exercise is, it should be something that one likes doing, because that way one does it more often. Exercise has numerous obvious benefits by working the different muscles of the body and different organs of the body at higher capacity. Then at rest later, they function more efficiently. So, for example, if I raise my heart rate during exercise and do this on a regular basis, then my heart becomes used to pumping blood around the body, circulating oxygen for the tissues and organs that need it, in such a way that when I'm at rest and not exercising, it doesn't have to work very hard. And as a result, my resting pulse comes down to be slower, and its function being more efficient contributes to a longer lifespan. So slowing down your resting pulse rate is a very visible sign of a benefit of regular exercise. However, there are plenty of others, and I believe that exercise makes one look better. And I don't just mean gym exercise in terms of being big and buff. I'm a rather slender man, even though I've been training at the gym for 12 years. I still haven't become beefy and bulky. And on the other hand, some people may find that they do gym exercises and bulk up but don't want to. Gym isn't for everybody. For me, I find that the gym gives me a bigger framework, so something that contributes to my appearance. I also find that gym exercises suit my particular health needs. So at one stage, I saw an eye specialist who saw vascular changes at the back of my eyes and thought that I might have the early stages of hardening of the arteries, atherosclerosis. A GP didn't find anything, but a naturopath found a substance called homocysteine, which was too high in my blood, and suggested that I get plenty of exercise. There was also a small amount of insulin resistance, so diabetes might have been a potential risk, and by increasing the amount of muscle that my body has, and therefore the spaces that glucose, blood sugar, can go into after a meal, I reduced my chance of having diabetes. So for me, the gym is good, and fitness, keeping my heart and lung function good, is important, but it's not going to be for everybody. I've also got quite a good measure of flexibility from having done Tai Chi and Qi Kung exercises for 17 years. Whatever exercise you do, it has to be fun. It can be nice in company, but doesn't have to be. One can do yoga alone at home on a mat, for example. Whatever it is, exercise is an important part of a healthy life, and together with the other healthy parts makes it much harder to suffer from a drug problem. Do what you can in the way of exercise and be patient with yourself. For fitness, it's good to have some exercise that raises the pulse rate a little bit, at least 20 minutes 3 times a week. I mention this in greater detail in words of experience. And there are risks associated with fitness if one hasn't done this before, especially if being greatly overweight. So it's a good idea to have a checkup with a doctor before starting an exercise program. But this is well worth the while to promote and discuss, bearing in mind the risks. There are great benefits in exercise. It's definitely an important part of life, definitely something that can help overcome a lot of drug problems. During this talk and my webinar, I've covered the factors that can make recovery from drug addiction or reducing problems due to drugs possible. And it starts with empowering yourself, believing in yourself, telling yourself you can make it. A lot of the times it's the discipline that's lacking for that, but you can trust me that little by little one can gain control over one's life to do these things. Simply a case of having insight into one's life and looking at things in a positive, self-affirming way, in a believing way, knowing what can result if one makes changes and being very patient to make those changes slowly and gradually and with patience, tolerance, rewarding oneself at every step of the way. It's important to have a good person to contact if should there be a problem or for support. This can be a professional, as simple as a GP or public hospital. Whoever this person is, whoever these people are, this person or the team is important to have on standby. There is also the area of mental culture. One may be self-medicating through drugs, or there may be other reasons for using drugs, but they cause unhappiness, either addiction or reliance, apathy, whatever that one doesn't like. And it's possible to look at the things that are inside the mind and see which ones are good and which ones are not, and which ones are difficult to change unless there is professional help. And whether using counseling or whether using medications or any other means, addressing mental health issues is very important, not just looking at drugs themselves or the side effects or the addiction. One should be welcoming and accepting of anybody who offers genuine support along the way. So friends who are there for one, loved ones who are there, parents who are there, other relatives who are there. They may offer love and support, and while it can be difficult to have the humility to accept this, or to be humble and accept this, swallow one's pride, dealing with especially serious issues makes this very important. So please, I can offer a plea not to shut out people from one's life who are loving and who are supporting, and not to mind the people in whom one falsely placed trust, so-called fake friends, not to mind them, but there are plenty of good people in one's life, in many cases, that are just overlooked and only too happy to be there to shower love and support on one. So if there is a hand that is reached out, and then grab it and offer friendship in return. Finding friends this way can be a way of making friends for life. A healthy life matters, and it's possible to make one's life healthy slowly and with discipline. So the three areas that I'd outlined still hold true. Having a positive attitude, having a healthy diet, and having regular exercise. Put all those things together, and the whole seems to me much greater than the sum of its parts. It's a very strange thing, and not only important for health, but for beauty as well. Not, of course, being such a beautiful specimen myself, but anyway, I do believe that. So, by following my Drugs Are Fun program, I believe it's possible to lead a drug-free life if one chooses, or at least one in which drugs don't have a hold on one that one is not happy with, or addiction, of course, and all sorts of serious health problems that can result. Through my social media, through things that are offered at my website, I hope to make the world better. I hope to contribute to world peace. I hope to help people with the various problems they have, including dependence on drugs or addiction and various types of suffering. I acknowledge that although I have a PhD in immunology and a lot of biomedical experience, that it may not be appropriate for certain things, and I don't make up for the things that I can't provide assistance with. All I'm trying to say is that I want to use the resources that I have at my disposal to help others who come to me for help. So whatever your need is, whatever your desire is, please feel welcome to let me know about it. Please go and visit my website, www.wordsbyfrank.com. Please follow me on Twitter, like my Facebook, follow me on Instagram, subscribe to my YouTube channel, download my free book, and see what I have to offer. And if you find that there is something that I don't offer that you're interested in, please let me know about it. Please support other people who want to have it, so that I may be able to gradually help more and more people, which is what I wish to do through Words by Frank. I have in this webinar mentioned a number of things without many details. This webinar, this presentation is only an introduction. I'm trying to give people an idea of my philosophy and which areas I think are important to overcome dependence on drugs and drug addiction. I consider that there are many resources that are important for this process that I haven't listed here. You will see ones that are merely particularly useful. So, for example, we have Global Mind Screen. It's very difficult for a mental health professional, even a psychiatrist, to be able to accurately diagnose and therefore successfully treat different mental health conditions. There may be more than one. People in the medical area call it comorbidity, and they can overlap. So there is a tool that is available called Global Mind Screen. You can find it at the website that's given here. And there is a charge to use Global Mind Screen, but the results can be provided, and through help from a GP, one can have enormous insight into 30 to 32 different mental health conditions that can be assessed with this particular tool. So it's a very powerful tool. It's an interactive computer questionnaire that draws questions from a pool of 400 questions, narrowing things down to where there are mental health issues for a particular person. So that is a useful tool to address what areas one may help with, what type of medications one might be able to use instead of using drugs for any particular mental health conditions. Physical health and what is important for it is very difficult to explain in a short webinar. So I have provided the New Zealand Cardiovascular Risk Calculator as a download from the New Zealand Guidelines Group. This is a tool to evaluate one's risk of having heart attack or a stroke, in case with a blockage or breakage of a vessel in the brain that can lead to paralysis, other problems, and obviously death. So it's a very visible reminder of the importance of regular exercise to reduce blood pressure, to reduce obesity, to reduce risks contributing to diabetes, to keep one's life free of harmful effects of smoking tobacco, which is really not the sort of recreational drug that I'm focusing on, but is still a very real problem for those people who take it up, and a lot of people who use other drugs also smoke. So by looking at this particular thing, you will see how important it is to make those healthy changes through exercise. There are dedicated support groups who are able to help people with addiction problems. A very good example in the USA is the Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation, which look at many areas of alcohol problems and addiction to other drugs. Mayo Clinic is an example of a specialized center which offers an addiction program, but there are many others. As I said it earlier on in my talk, it's possible to recover from a drug problem or to detox from a drug problem by oneself. And this process can be done with support staff on standby, as I had mentioned, but by oneself. So self-management for addiction recovery is a resource that's an example of this. The YouTube video from the Drug Rehab Advisor for Holistic Rehabilitation and Detoxification is formative of the various considerations one must have when detoxing at home, the various types of nutrients one might need, and to keep well hydrated and flush a lot of the toxins out of one's body. Those considerations are an example of the sort of things one has to think about. And there are many sources of such information. In all cases, if in doubt, get advice from someone professional or someone whom one trusts, and look at all programs that are offered critically, and to be sure that one is being careful and that these things are going to be helping with the problem and not creating problems. While many people in the world are well-meaning, occasionally one finds people that are not, or even fraudulent, so one always has to be very careful and check everything first. Narcotics Anonymous is a well-known organization for dealing with problems of drug use. They offer advice, they offer support groups, and a system that is tried and true by the test of time to overcome drug habits. So with the drug problem, it's well worth checking out Narcotics Anonymous, and they're based in many countries, hence they offer world services. So we come to the end of my webinar. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you felt some positive feelings and thoughts as a result of this. If you like what I've said, and you like the ideas that I have about leading a healthy life and obtaining some freedom from the grip of drugs, if it is a problem, then please tell your friends and ask them to subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on social media, and visit my website, www.wordsbyfrank.com. I hope I can be of service to you, and thank you very much. Goodbye for now. Peace.